I don't think people, including myself, have a very clear idea of what exactly led up to the catastrophic events that occurred in places like Nazi Germany. Because I think people have this idea that things slid into tyranny 1 inch at a time, which is accurate to some degree, but there was also a significant back and forth going on between the far left and the far right. And if you were in the 1930s in Germany, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell who was going to win out in that conflict. For example, the German Communist Party had almost as many votes as the Nazi Party in the 1930 elections, which was only 2 years before Hitler rose to power. And then a single catalytic event, namely the Reichstag fire, occurred, which solidified Hitler's final rise to power, and then we know what happened afterward. And there are other eerie parallels that I feel obliged to point out in current society. So the reason I'm making this video is because of the Supreme Court decision, which wasn't a decision, it was a leak, in which Roe V Wade was being prepared to be overturned. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute here, but the broader point I'm trying to make is when you have underlying tension, when you have underlying hatred that has been brewing for years, which no one can dispute is the case right now between the left and the right, it only takes a few catalytic events to set something into motion that truly, I don't know what, civil conflict on a large scale. I'm not talking about a civil war per se, but certainly what we've seen with the Black Lives Matter riots and January 6th, the idea that civil conflict couldn't occur or just is out of the question is, I think, beyond ignorant at this point. Just consider the dichotomy. This is where we're going. This is the trajectory that we are on. Here are the two perspectives. From the left's perspective, Roe v. Wade is getting overturned, and in some states, I believe Louisiana, Republicans were advancing legislation to consider abortion a homicide, the same as murder. And I have my issues with that. I'll put that lightly. But what's more, because of all the backlash to critical race theory and Joe Biden and whatnot, it does seem like the Democrats are going to lose virtually all of their political power. So now this puts even more pressure on them. But consider something on the right. On the right, what has been going on? There's all of this discourse around what's happening in schools with children, which I am very much concerned with, and a lot of the gender ideology that is being pushed on kids that's confusing kids.
If you're asking the question, am I trans? The answer is probably yes.
And it's causing kids to go through surgery on their genitals before the age of 15 or 14 sometimes. And the conservatives are saying, oh, they're coming, the left is coming for your kids, all this stuff.
The last 2 weeks have taught us anything, it's that the left is obsessed with teaching children about sexual and gender identity. In private schools, it's dubbed a queer inclusive curriculum.
Now, I want to tell you a fact that I did not know until a while ago, and this fact underpins a lot of my fear and a lot of what I worry about in terms of the polarization. It scares me. I have stated repeatedly on this channel how much I hate the ideology of the extreme left, but if this country devolves into chaos, it will be the far right that spearheads it. The reason I hate the extreme ideology on the left is because it inspires the reaction from the right, and the reaction is often the most deadly thing. So here's what I learned that scares me, and it's important to understand this clearly. In the 1930s, before Hitler's rise to power, Berlin was a mecca for gay people and transsexuals. And in fact, I think the first transsexual surgery ever performed was in Berlin in the 1930s. Now, if anyone thinks that being gay or getting transgender surgery as an adult is a bad thing, or that gay people and transgender people don't deserve happiness, then, or they deserve to be, removed from society, which is what Hitler did, then you are in desperate need of therapy and needing to uncover the sexual repression that drives your hatred. The reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the things that drove Hitler's rise to power was him capitalizing on the fear and disgust of the German people. Fear and disgust that was rooted in ignorance and bigotry. But if you fast forward to today, things get genuinely scary now, because there is plenty of fear and disgust on the right that is justified, because there are a tiny minority of far-left extremists who say things like little children are kinky, like this Alok Manvaden guy, who I literally found on TikTok the other day. And so this guy is just out there spreading his bullshit.
Your skin is glowing. Your voice is like a calming ASMR video.
And then you have articles like, I want my children to see sexual kink stuff at gay pride festivals, written in the Washington Post. And then you have Fox News playing clips of libs of TikTok and all this stuff in schools. It's like, where does this end, right? Where does this go? All it takes is some far-right authoritarian strongman, who we've seen some prototype version of already, admittedly, come out and say, you know what? We're going to put a stop to all of this shit, all of this LGBT stuff. We're going to lump gay people and transsexuals into the same category as the tiny minority of creeps who justify weird shit with children. It's like, I'm already seeing that. That's already what's happening online. And, you know, that stuff gets fed into the mainstream, and then things just fall apart. And now that Roe v. Wade is overturned, which there's plenty of commentary that's more reasonable than anything I'm going to provide. All I can say is I think that abortion should be illegal when it's like the last trimester and the baby is a clearly developed being with a nervous system and all that. But the idea that the moment a sperm fertilizes an egg, that's a human being, and that aborting it with like a Plan B pill, that's going to be the equivalent of homicide, is insanity in my opinion. And so the left now has some justified platform to stand on to say, look at all these weird religious extremists who are trying to say that women who take a Plan B pill commit literal homicide at the same time as children are being groomed and all this shit. And it's like, this is how societies fall apart. That is what happens. And if you think this will just diffuse, this will just go away. It's like, have you not been around for the past few years and just seen stuff? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think the only path forward is to speak honestly as possible, to call out the bad as best as you can, and to live out a life that is guided by some moral principles that are worth living. Like maybe unifying instead of trying to paint your opponents or people that you think disagree with you, because chances are they don't always disagree with you, as one-dimensional monsters, which we do a lot. And it's something I have fallen into and I am trying to get better at. But I don't know. And I'm going to continue doing my best to speak about things that are important. And we'll see what happens. So, good luck and Godspeed.